Greetings, everybody. It's a fine Friday morning here, the 27th of June, 2025. I trust you are well and that you are thankful for all the blessings that you received. In my previous video, I talked about the war between Israel and Iran. And I said also some controversial things concerning Israel. I say controversial because I know there's a huge group of people who believe that Israel needs to be supported, in the Western world. So today I want to expand on those points I've made because I'm sure many people will disagree vehemently with me on this viewpoint. My main point was that Israel of 1948, the State of Israel, is not the fulfillment of biblical prophecy as stated or explained or shown in the Old Testament of the Bible, where it's described by the prophets that eventually, despite their disobedience to God, that God will bring them back to their land, the chosen people, and establish them there. And I said that they're not the real people, what is loosely referred to as the chosen people, based on three scriptures that I selected. There are other scriptures that would also indicate this. But the three scriptures that I mentioned were Deuteronomy 28, verse 68, where it talks about they'll be again taken away on ships to Egypt, and Egypt is a term that's not the real Egypt of the North Africa only, but Egypt is representative of any oppressive land. So they'll be again taken into captivity, sold as slaves, taken on ships, and the peoples that are in Israel presently are not those people that were taken on ships and placed in slavery. It's another group of people which I will perhaps in some future video elaborate on. My focus is on actually the people that are there that claim to be Jews but are not really Jews or Hebrews. Perhaps we can accept the term Jews, which is quite common in today's world. So I just wanted to give you the Deuteronomy 28, and then of course the other scriptures are Revelations chapter 2 verse 9 and Revelations chapter 3 verse 9. Just listen here, because the last time I did not read it and I want to read it for you so you can get some context. In Revelations chapter 2 verse 9, it says, I know thy works. This is referring to a church here. And tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy, here it comes, of them which say they are Jews, but are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Take note, it's using the term synagogue. This chapter is talking about church here, but it inserts something here about people who call themselves Jews but are not, and that this is Jesus Christ speaking here. And they are of the synagogue, and synagogue is the place of worship of that group of people. So there's already in the context there's something much more to be said. Then in chapter 3, also talking about the church of Philadelphia, of Philadelphia, verse 9, behold, which means look here, see, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan. There again the term synagogue, which is not about the church here now, it's separate, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, again, see here, look, listen, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. So there's something in the future that's going to take place, but for our focus today, it's about who these people are. There's certain people who say that they're Jews, but they are not, and they're of the synagogue of Satan. So those are the three scriptures I wanted to bring to you. Those who are naysayers, those who are so supportive of that state, to consider these points, because I'm sure many of you will see this as a ridiculous concept, that it's an alien idea. I appear to be a crank, and one that's latching onto conspiracy theories. Consider those three scriptures before you become too judgmental. On this one, of course, you will be judgmental, and of course, like I said previously, if you can't cope with these discussions or talks, you can bounce off. Freedom of speech. Bounce off and scroll to wherever you want to go, but whoever seekers of truth will give me a hearing on this issue. Now, the question will be, how is it that we have so many people who believe that narrative, the narrative of Israel of 1948? I said so. I did believe I would actually defend before I would teach about it. But I've come to realize when studying the Bible, you discover something new every time you open that Bible. So how is it that we are into that kind of belief? Firstly, I'll say we are sold a narrative of lies. For way back when, it comes down to the people who write books, the people who write for newspapers and magazines, and the media, the newspapers and the television. That is the reason why so many, I would say millions, believe that narrative. And, if you say anything different to that, then you are anti-Semitic, which is a huge problem, because now, because you speak, you will be called that. Many people will hold back from saying anything or even asking the relevant questions. Now, I'll give you an example of the power of the media. Say, for instance, take a magazine house, a newspaper house. They are so-called editors and journalists. The journalists collect the information with photography, etc. They come and they present it to the editor, and the editor has final say as to the content that will be published. In case you didn't know this, it's very powerful, that person, and that person is actually appointed into that position, where there's a selection process. So certain people are selected for those positions. And a second point then is that this whole issue is exacerbated because of who owns the media. There's very rich people in the world who own the media, newspaper houses, magazines, even the television is vetted by powerful people, very wealthy people who own the information. The information is then very selective for public consumption. They decide for you what is newsworthy. You don't decide it; they decide for you, and then through that they formulate your opinion. So a lot of television and newspapers is opinion making. It actually selects the content, and they put a narrative in the content to convince you, the public, us the public, about a certain idea, and we call that idea the narrative. So media is very powerful all through the decades. Almost determines government policies also, because government has a say also in the media. Many times the media is influenced by government policy also. And then you get what is called lobbies, especially in the United States of America. There are powerful lobbies, and the lobbies are made up of business owners, political leaders, and very influential people in the society, who then lobby concepts to Congress, to the government, as to what to support and what not to support, where funds should go, etc., etc. So this issue about media is very powerful and actually relates to why people believe what they believe, because the opinion is given to them, what opinion to hold. On a personal experience, let me share to you what I used to believe. You know, in this country, we used to call it the rooi gevaar and die swart gevaar, you know, African terms for the red danger and the black danger. The red danger would refer to communism, and the swart, which is black, is actually, you know, the danger of the blacks in the country. You know, we're referring to the times of apartheid and of communism. And I believe those things intrinsically because of the media, because of the banning of certain information that would reach people. At that time, we used to have what is called the USSR, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, reference to Russia and all the states that were together there. And we were taught and told, you know, that they wanted to cancel religion. That's bad. Communism means no individual ownership of property. The collective was prominent or premier. There's such called the Politburo that controlled society, and everything was centralization. You know, and that because of communism, Russia was poor and undeveloped, and the KGB, which was the secret service of Russia, was repressive and dangerous, etc. But, you know, on a personal level, I'll add on to that to say that way back decades ago, I had the privilege to travel overseas. I didn't have much money, but I had to stay at youth hostels, and I traveled. And this story I want to just relate to you is what, just to add to this story I'm telling you, is that I took the train from München in Germany, that's South Germany, that's Munich in English, to West Berlin. That time it was still East Berlin and West Berlin, and East Germany and West Germany. And I had the strangest experience of arriving in West Berlin at midnight, you know, just before midnight, at the change of the year. And that was quite an experience, which perhaps I should tell you further about the story. But to cut a long story short, while I was in Berlin, West Berlin, I went on a day tour from East Berlin to West Berlin, which they had at the time, where you pay your ticket and you go on a bus, and they give you a tour of East Berlin. And what you see there is basically everything confirmed about the undevelopment and drab of communism, etc. You go through Checkpoint Charlie, you know, lots of it was American terms. Checkpoint Charlie, the youth hostel that I lived at or stayed at was called, you know, at the Bahnhof New West End, you know. So I arrived at the Hauptbahnhof, the central station, and ended up staying at the youth hostel in New West End. And I went through Checkpoint Charlie to go to East Berlin. But in subsequent decades, I've come to learn that Russia is a modern country, a modern state. Russia, you know, is not anti-religion. The Russian Orthodox Church has survived through communism. Is supported presently by Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, very much. And there's no anti-religion there. You know, Putin was a member of the KGB, but that picture of you know, danger and suppression and oppression, etc., you don't see in the man. In fact, Putin is the one who released the truth about Jesus Christ from vaults there in Russia, where we see the picture of Jesus Christ is vastly different from what the Western version of Jesus Christ, the blonde hair, fair-skinned, blue-eye Jesus that's been sold quite a bit. And I mentioned it before, and I think there should be talk about it going forward. So the media has been telling us lies because that wall came down afterwards. The Iron Curtain, that was the Cold War that time. And through Glasnost and Perestroika, the USSR, crumbled, came Russia after that, and some states got independence, like Ukraine, for instance. The point here is that we learn that Russia is advanced, and there's something that I've noticed also, that Russia is moral. It's mostly moral in general, ethical, calm, disciplined, as compared to the USA with all the liberalism that's been so bragged about. America, there's a lot of immorality there. There's this unethical behavior, undisciplined behavior, chaotic and disorderly. I'm talking in general. There is a much exception to the rule. So social media is also used as a media agency to spread lies, but in between things in social media is much truth. So how is it that people believed this narrative about 1948 Israel? It's because of the lies and the power of the media, and we need to wake up to the truth, because it's decades of lies that have been spread. I just gave you an example now, for instance, in my anecdotal experience of how I believed these things up to very recently in my life, I would say. So I hope that I've stimulated your thinking on this matter, and that we will talk about it again in future. Until next time.